Yeah, I can totally do that for you. Okay, good. So if you guys refresh your page, you should be able to see me now on your screen. Give me a little confirm when you can. Yay. Okay, cool. There's about a minute time lag. Okay, you just won't be able to interact. Yeah, that's probably a good idea is, or you know what we could do is we could just hang up and then at the end of the presentation dial back in for Q&A. Do you guys want to do that? This way there won't be a lag. Or if you guys just mute me on the phone and then listen to the sound on your computer screen, that should work fine too. Okay, good. And what I will do is mute everybody out. So I don't get any feedback here. Okay, good. So I muted myself on the phone too. So we're all going to hear it on your computers. Good. Okay, perfect. So let me pull up our slides here. Oh, I got the same slide thing here. Okay, so today we're talking about nutrition for life, and I'm going to be taking you guys through some really exciting information about nutrition. And I'm particularly excited to share this information with you because I personally didn't really know much about nutrition, and I'm embarrassed to say that because my degree is in biochemistry, and I was a biology teacher. But as a biology teacher, I wasn't responsible for teaching the kids about nutrition. That was actually the health teacher's job. So I didn't really know that much about nutrition or understand nutrition, and that had a huge effect on my health. When I was 25 years old was the first time in my life that I was told I had high cholesterol. And also when I was 22 years old, I had my gallbladder out. And then shortly after that, I gained a tremendous amount of weight. I gained about 100 pounds. And I ended up with a disorder called hypothyroidism. And the doctor told me, the specialist that I was going to, told me that my thyroid wasn't working at all and that I needed to have it removed or it could become cancerous. And that was like a huge wake-up call for me because I thought, you know, here I am, I was 22 years old, just about to be 23, and they were telling me that I needed to have a gland that produces major hormones that affect every area of your body, temperature control, fertility, and weight, as well as energy, taken out of my body, and I was going to live the rest of my life that way. So I said, I talked to the doctor and I said, no, thank you. I'm going to do some of my own research. And that was the first time that I ever had an experience of going to a nutritionist who gave me some really valuable advice. And over the next year and a half, I lost that weight, but more so, my thyroid actually started functioning normally. And since then, I've had a normally functioning thyroid. And a lot of it had to do with nutrition and what I was eating. So at the time, I was eating a lot of processed food. I ate like Kraft macaroni and cheese. I ate, and not to say that these caused the thyroid issue because obviously I don't know what exactly caused it, but my diet was primarily 90% processed food. I ate microwave meals for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. If it didn't come in a microwave dish, then it definitely came in a box. I didn't eat salads. Vegetables were not a big part of my life. And so I started to make some significant changes. And I still struggled with high cholesterol and fatigue and joint pain and the ups and downs of gaining weight. Well, when I got pregnant was when really the question came in my mind about nutrition, and the question was, how do I build a body, right? Because that's what I was essentially doing, is I had to intake all of the components to build this body. So I started doing a lot of research on nutrition, and it really opened up a huge door to me. Now, I just said to my husband today, I'm 40 years old, and I am the healthiest I've ever been in my life. And I just got some blood work back from the doctor, and she said, Shannon, your blood work looks amazing. And to me, that's a really great testament to the research and also the supplementation and the nutritional support that I do in my life. And because I completely turned it around, I know that this information and diet can completely change it around for other people. And we see examples of that all the time, right? So I'm going to share some information with you about how your body works, how your cells work, and how nutrients work in your body that can really, through this education, help you make healthier choices. So the first thing, if you've ever seen this diagram, I'm pretty sure you have if you took a biology class, this is what a basic animal cell looks like. And every part of this cell has a specific responsibility in it that is life-giving to you. So these little jelly bean structures that you see right here, these are called mitochondria. And mitochondria are so essential to your body because they produce all of the energy in your cells. So if you want to lift your arm, the energy that it takes to lift your arm is produced by those mitochondria. If you're breathing, right, which we all are, and your heart is pumping, that energy is produced by those mitochondria. Now, interestingly, when people have like mental fogginess and a lot of fatigue, the reason that they have that is because your body will plug in the energy to your essential functions first. So your heart, your kidneys, certain functions in your brain, not all of the functions in your brain, but certain functions, which are basically the functions that you don't have to think about, right? So anything in your body that you don't have to think about controlling, like breathing, your heart pumping, your kidneys working, the energy will go to those functions first. Other functions that you do have to think about, like walking, running, lifting your arms, doing exercise, you might not have enough energy for those things if your cells don't have the ability to produce the right energy. These squiggly lines that you see here that look like big tubes, those are the endoplasmic reticulum. And what those are responsible for is they move the waste throughout your cell. So they take the waste that is left over from all the chemical processes and then they move it out of your cell. What else can I show you here? Lysosomes. Lysosomes actually have enzymes in them. That's these little tiny tubes here. Lysosomes have enzymes in them that are responsible for protecting your cells. So they have chemical components that will attack invaders, and then they also break down waste. So another very important component. And then, of course, you have your nucleus right here in the center, and inside of the nucleus, that's what protects your DNA. And that allows certain nutrients in and certain nutrients out to be able to allow your DNA to replicate and also to encode proteins. Now, what are proteins made? These little tiny dots that you see out here in the endoplasmic reticulum, that's where proteins are made. And proteins are what make up like your eyes, your hairs, your nails, inside of your skin cells, your muscle fibers. If you consider that your heart is a big muscle and cells are breaking down in it every day and cells are being remade in it every day, then you understand that your ability to produce proteins in your body is very, very important, right? And that takes energy too. So that's what a basic cell is. And one single cell is responsible for all of the life functions in your body. Now, if you have a healthy cell, then nutrients are able to pass into your cell for all of the functions like making proteins, and the waste is able to easily pass out of your cells. If you have an unhealthy cell, then absorption of nutrients is inhibited. We learned a lot about that last week with glucose and the insulin receptors, and wastes aren't able to be moved out, right? So again, that's how you end up with a toxic cell. And what happens with all of that waste? Well, it doesn't just hang out, it damages everything in the cell. So that waste can damage your DNA, that waste can damage the RNA, which makes your proteins, and eventually it can actually cause the cell to become diseased. The cell could become a cancer cell and affect other cells. It could shrivel up and die. It could begin the process of just tissue damage. So all kinds of things can happen if that waste is not eliminated and moved out of your body. Now, nutritional deficiencies can definitely cause damaged cells, and nutritional deficiencies can cause a lot of things, particularly cravings, right? We're focused on weight loss. So why do we get cravings? Cravings can be caused by a number of things. One, we learned that it can be caused by insulin fluctuations, right? If insulin spikes really high, it causes all the blood sugar to go into the cells or into the tissues. Then there's tons of insulin floating around and no sugar, and the body says, eat more, eat more, eat more. Or it could be caused by nutritional deficiencies. So here's a couple of examples. Let's say that you're craving chocolate. Well, it could be that you're deficient in magnesium. So what are some of the foods that you could eat to get rid of that craving? Raw nuts and seeds, beans, and certain fruits. If you're craving sweets, you could be deficient in chromium, carbon, phosphorus, sulfur, and tryptophan. So what are some of the foods that you can eat for that? Well, instead of eating something sweet, eat some broccoli, right? Doesn't sound very appetizing, but you could eat some dried beans, you could eat chicken, certain fruits, eggs, poultry, chicken, kale, cabbage. And so soda, people who crave soda, they could be deficient in calcium, right? And what's the correlation with that? Well, the reason that they're craving soda is because, one, soda is habitual, right? So it's their habit to reach for that as a drink, and the body's actually driving them to drink and to eat to get calcium. So what could you eat? Mustard and turnip greens, which are awesomely delicious if you saute them with a little bit of garlic and coconut oil. Broccoli, kale, again, beans. Premenstrual cravings, you could be deficient in zinc, so red meats, leafy greens. General overeating, you could be deficient in silicon, which is actually a component you've probably heard in like sand, but it also comes from certain foods like nuts and seeds, and it's necessary for the formation of our hair and our nails. Tyrosine is an amino acid, so orange, green, red fruits and vegetables. So these are a lot of deficiencies that could be spiking your cravings. Now what happens, our cravings are actually controlled by our brain. And a certain part of our brain called the hypothalamus will actually trigger cravings. And it does it because the cells are signaling to the brain through chemical responses that they're missing something. So the brain triggers the hunger response. But unfortunately, our brain does not control where our hand goes, right? So if it did, it would just, automatically move our feet over to the aisle in the supermarket that had the beans, and our hand would move out like a robot and grab some beans and shove them in our mouth, right? But that's not what happens. What happens is we're hungry, we have the cravings, we go in the supermarket and we see all of the tantalizing things in the beautiful rainbow-colored packaging that says, eat me, eat me, eat me, right? And I was talking to John about this the other day. When I shop, I literally stick to the outside of the supermarket. So I start at one end where the produce is, and then I go back around where some of the dairy is, and I get like some yogurt and stuff for Trinity. I get eggs, almond milk, and then I swing back around. And in my supermarket, the organic food is actually in the same section with the produce. So there's the first aisle is organic food, and the produce is right there. Now, they just redid our big supermarket here, and I go to Whole Foods. Whole Foods is easy because you walk in, you're right in the vegetables and the fruits. It's like that's where you're at. So I walk right in there. If I go to Smith's, they just redid the supermarket, and when you first walk in, you're in the floral section, then you're in Starbucks, then you pass through the bakery, and they put the bakery right in front of the fruits and the vegetables. And I was talking to the manager. I was like, why would you do that to people? It's like a complete setup. And he was like, well, actually, marketing shows if you put the bakery there, people are more likely to buy it. Well, of course, because if you walk into the supermarket and you're hungry, then all of those carbohydrates are right there, right? So understand that certain nutritional deficiencies can cause these cravings. Now, fat storage can also be caused by nutritional deficiencies. And this is actually just historical development of the human being, right? So when you think back to caveman times, when before our genetic development of what we are right now, and I'm not getting into any like Big Bang Theory or biblical conflictions or anything like that, but the human being has definitely evolved over time, right? So have plant species, so have animal species. And a lot of that has to do with like environmental factors and stuff, right? And changes in our DNA. Well, in caveman times, before the evolution of manufactured food and before the evolution of transported food, when did they have access to carbohydrates? They had access to carbohydrates in the summer, right? And then lean times were in the winter. So they would eat tons of carbohydrates, berries, vegetables, fruits, all of that in the summer, and those carbohydrates would be stored on the body, right? Now, you never saw a picture of a fat caveman or a fat cave woman, right? Because the body knew exactly how much to store. Then in the winter, they would have primarily a protein-based diet and would burn off all of those stored carbohydrates. Now, the stored carbohydrates also served as insulation, right, for the winter months. Now, by the time spring came and they were super, super hungry for carbohydrates again, that's when the berries, the fruits, and all of that stuff started to appear again. So our bodies are genetically designed to store foods in times of plenty and burn foods in times of not so plenty, right? Well, if we have a nutritional deficiency, though, what's going to happen is the body is not going to release those necessary vitamins, right? Or it's not going to release that body fat because it thinks it's starving, right? So it's going to keep on holding on to everything that it can possibly hold on to because something is missing. And if you don't introduce that, then the body is not going to lose weight. This is why in the United States, a lot of times they characterize us as the fattest, hungriest nation in the world because we're starving, nutritionally starving. So people will gain weight, even like sometimes they'll go on a diet and they'll just be eating lettuce and they won't lose weight. Well, why aren't they losing weight? The two main reasons are, one, toxins, we're going to talk about that next week, and two, nutritional deficiencies. That's also why starvation diets don't work because the body's going to stop at some point losing the weight until it gets to like where the scales tip, and then it starts in total degeneration, where it starts to break down bone, it starts to break down skin, it starts to break down hair, starts to break down the circulatory system, and that's what you see in severe anorexics, right? So what nutrients are vital to actually healthy weight loss? Well, when you look at this, I actually stole this from this chiropractic clinic. I found this online. It's an awesome, awesome diagram. So when you look at zinc, a deficiency of zinc reduces leptin, which is a beneficial hormone that regulates appetite. So if you're deficient in zinc, then your appetite isn't going to be necessarily regulated, which is one of the reasons why that's a component in our sunrise. Vitamin K is linked to excess fat tissue. And vitamin K also helps to metabolize sugars. So if you're deficient in vitamin K, then you're not going to be metabolizing sugars correctly, and your body's not going to want to release fat. Vitamin D deficiency, I'm going to show you in a second a whole nother slide on this, because vitamin D is so important in human beings, and it has so many different effects on how our body regulates weight, but also how our body regulates a lot of other areas. Vitamin E inhibits pre-fat cells from changing into mature fat cells, thus reducing body fat. Like, who doesn't want that, right? Who doesn't want their immature fat cells to just be like, no, thank you, I'm not going to take any fat on today. Of course we do, right? Vitamin A enhances expression of genes that reduces a person's tendency to store food as fat. It also reduces the size of fat cells. Vitamin B, niacin, treatment with B3 increases adiponectin, a weight loss hormone secreted by fat cells. Niacin-bound chromium supplements helped reduce body weight in clinical trials. Inositol supplementation may increase that same hormone. I'm not going to repeat that. Cysteine, you hear about quite a bit now in the news, very powerful antioxidant, and it helps to reduce body fat as well. Glutamine, same thing, reduces body fat. Magnesium in cells actually impairs a person's ability to use glucose for fuel. So if you don't have enough magnesium, you can't actually use the glucose that's coming into your body, which also can have a huge effect on insulin resistance. Now, magnesium deficiencies have also been linked to all kinds of psychotic disorders and psychological disorders. So mood fluctuations, PMS, distractions, inability to focus, also contributed to magnesium. Magnesium stimulates metabolism as well. And it also increases insulin sensitivity. Now, vitamin B5 lowers body weight by activating lipoprotein lipase, and that's an enzyme that burns fat cells. Chromium makes the body more sensitive to insulin, and lipoic acid improves glucose uptake into cells. And a lot of these that you see here, glutamine, cysteine, lipoic acid, are from fruits and vegetables, which when you look at diets that don't allow you to have any fruit, you're cutting out a lot of these phytonutrients that are really, really important. Calcium inhibits the formation of fat cells. Calcium these days has gotten a really bad rap because a lot of companies were using just calcium carbonate, which is very, very difficult for the body to absorb, and it can have effects in the cardiovascular system. Calcium citrate and calcium malate are the two best forms of calcium when you're taking them. They should be taken together, not separately. So any good calcium supplement is going to have calcium malate and calcium citrate, as well as vitamin K and vitamin D and magnesium, because they're all very, very important to how calcium is absorbed and processed in the body. Carnitine carries fatty acids into cells so they can be burned for fuel. So it helps to reduce the actual adipose fat tissue that forms around organs. And adipose tissue, if you look at this picture, this would be considered adipose tissue. It's the fat that's around the belly and in between all of the organs that compresses on the organ tissues. And then biotin is incredibly important. Biotin boosts metabolism. It improves glycemic control, so it helps to stabilize blood sugar. But it's also really important for your hair and your nails. Biotin is a big component in the Accelerate. So when you're taking the Slenderex and the Accelerate has biotin in it. And asparagine, this amino acid increases insulin sensitivity, which we want, right? Because if you're deficient in this, which a lot of people are, that's also going to help increase that insulin resistance. And I just wanted to show you these two vitamins. You know, people often will say, well, I don't need to take vitamins or minerals. And I used to have that mindset too, because I was like, oh, my lean cuisine meal has vitamins added to it. Well, what a bunch of bunk that is. Vitamins, our food supply right now is very deficient in a lot of nutrients because it's through our modern farming practices, our soil is just depleted. Here in the United States, we actually produce far more food than the people in our country actually even require. A lot of it goes to waste. And people here in our country, a lot of people are starving. And because of unequal distribution of food as well. Well, without vitamin and mineral supplementation, proper supplementation, I'm not talking about the junk you can buy at BJ's or Sam's Club or Costco that's all synthetic vitamins that were produced by GMO bacteria and made 5 years ago and stuck in a pill form with all kinds of binders your body can't even digest. Talking about whole food supplementation. Without that, our body can be very deficient. Now, one of the top deficiencies, or two of the top deficiencies I'm going to talk about here, one is vitamin D. A lot of people are very deficient in vitamin D, particularly because of the use of sunblocks in the summer, which can inhibit the production of vitamin D, and also because of the winter, right? We go through the winter, we don't get as much sun, we're indoors a lot. Vitamin D deficiency causes all kinds of problems. So a lot of medications can cause vitamin D deficiency because it affects how the body processes the sunlight. And the way we get vitamin D, by the way, is through sun. The sun hits our skin, and certain reactive chemicals in our skin cells produce vitamin D. We also get it through supplementation. Milk is fortified with vitamin D, and it started to get fortified with vitamin D because earlier a lot of people were developing certain diseases that were common to vitamin D deficiency, one of them being rickets, which has a very serious effect on bone formation. So what are some of the causes of vitamin D deficiency? Crohn's disease, Whipple's disease, cystic fibrosis, celiac disease, liver disease, right? Those are all diseases of the small intestine and colon that have to do with how we absorb nutrients. Interestingly enough, there are new studies coming out about Splenda. And Splenda was supposed to be the safe chemical, but now they're actually showing that Splenda affects how our body, how your small intestine is able to absorb nutrients, and is a major contributor to leaky gut syndrome. So it actually affects how the cells stick together, and leaky gut syndrome is when little food particles make it out of your small intestine into your body cavity, and then your immune system starts to attack. So some of the results of vitamin D deficiency: osteoporosis, osteoarthritis, muscle weakness. If you're deficient in vitamin D, you can't absorb or process calcium properly. Certain infections can be caused by vitamin D deficiency or your exposure to it. Type 1 diabetes, multiple sclerosis, Crohn's disease, rheumatoid arthritis can all become very symptomatic with vitamin D deficiency. And then certain cancers, breast cancer, colon, prostate, pancreas, a higher incidence from vitamin D deficiency. Not to mention, it has a huge effect with how your body is able to metabolize food. Type 2 diabetes, the incidence is much higher with vitamin D deficiency, depression, and schizophrenia. Now nowadays, right, doctors are pumping out psych drugs like crazy, antidepressants, anti-anxieties, and most of those physicians are not testing for vitamin D deficiencies before they put people on these drugs. And the other side effect of the drugs is that they deplete vitamin D even further. So interesting how that works. So should you supplement? Should you be taking a vitamin D supplement? Probably, probably. How can you tell if you're deficient in vitamin D? If you go to any naturopath, it's definitely one of the first things that they test for. Traditional physicians never test for it. And naturopathic will always test for vitamin D and B12 because those are the two most symptomatic, or the two most asymptomatic, I should say, but have the most peripheral disease symptoms. B12. B12, so many people are deficient in this as well. Where do you get B12 from? Meats, nuts, beans, right? And unfortunately, commercialized beef does not give you a high level of B12. So what are the causes of deficiency, of B12 deficiency? A low protein diet, antacids actually affect. Now, why would an antacid cause a B12 deficiency? because if you're reducing the acid in your stomach, then you're unable to break down the foods that require acid to break down. Meats, poultries, beans, nuts, right? Those all require a good amount of acidity in your stomach to break down properly so that they can be absorbed. Alcohol can have a effect on reduced B12. Stress, for sure, because B12 is just totally consumed in the stress processes. Aging, as we're aging, which we all are doing, then that actually affects the amount of B12 that we have in our body as well. So what are the related symptoms? Well, one, weight gain, reduced energy, impaired detoxification. So it means that your body isn't able to remove waste and toxins out the way that it used to. Numbness and tingling in your fingers and in your tissues, anemia, and now they're starting to show that people that are symptomatic for the syndrome, fibromyalgia is not classified as a disease, but rather a syndrome and a collection of symptoms. A number of those people have B12 deficiencies, right, which makes sense. So I just wanted to show you these two vitamins. Now you can look up online, just type in vitamin deficiency symptoms, and you'll see chart after chart after chart that will show you what vitamin, what the deficiencies are, and what kind of symptoms you have with that. But I wanted to show you these because they're the most common, and they all have an effect on weight loss. Now, phytonutrients. I love talking about phytonutrients because there's so much emerging research. They're not all classified. There's over 25,000 phytonutrients. Now, what is a phytonutrient? A phytonutrient is a chemical, plant chemical, that helps to protect the plant from disease. So it protects it from fungus, from insects, protects it from damage, helps it to grow, helps it to process. Some of the examples of phytonutrients that you may be most familiar with are resveratrol, right? Resveratrol is in red wine, it's in grapes. Very, very important anti-inflammatory components. People with arthritis have great results with resveratrol. Also, flavonols come from fruit. Lutein, lycopene, beta-carotene, right? Beta-carotene is in carrots is what helps to make them orange. The carotenes. Now, why are phytonutrients being studied so much, and why are they so important? We talk a lot about vitamins and minerals, and vitamins and minerals were actually identified in the 1800s into the early 1900s, and a lot was learned about them at the beginning of World War I and even further into World War II. Well, why did they really study vitamins and minerals? Because they were sending soldiers into places where food wasn't going to necessarily be accessible, so they started to create manufactured food. And that's actually where processed food started to make its way into the modern day marketplace. Was World War II, was when they started to develop processed foods for the military. So if you're ever wondering, like, why did somebody sit down and say, hey, we want food that comes in plastic in a cardboard box? Well, that's where it started. Was to handle the demands of soldiers that were going to be at war. So during that time, they classified vitamins, they classified minerals. And most of the vitamins that were classified were actually classified because of certain disorders. So a slew of diseases would show up in an area, and then they would figure out that because a certain food was missing from their diet, there must be something in that food that is causing, or something in that food that prevents that disease. And like thrush, right? Vitamin C prevents thrush, and certain things like that. So they did these studies. Well, now what they're finding is that a lot of vitamins, they were producing synthetic vitamins, but synthetic vitamins weren't being absorbed, or a very, very small portion of them were being absorbed. So they were very much not bioavailable. Bioavailable means that something can be absorbed in your body and put into your cells. So they started to say, well, why are these vitamins absorbed out of food but not absorbed when we manufacture them individually? And what they found is, one, certain vitamins are fat soluble and certain vitamins are water soluble. So if you're dehydrated, you're not going to absorb the vitamin. And if you don't have enough fat in your diet, you're not going to absorb the vitamin. Which is why, yet again, I will crash the HCG diet, because they say no fat, but your body can't absorb certain vitamins if you don't have enough fat for them to break down in. Fat-soluble vitamins need fats to be absorbed into your cells. So why are they studying phytonutrients? Well, what they found out was that the actual plant components, when you eat it as a plant, changes the chemical structure of the vitamin in your body during the metabolic process and makes it more bioavailable to your cells. So you can actually get more of the vitamin, more of that good effect from whole foods. And then they also found that many of these phytonutrients have cancer-fighting properties. They're antioxidants. They help to fight and prevent heart disease. They fight the effects of aging. Just absolutely amazing, the phytonutrients in here. So why do I bring this up? Because I'm going to talk about a little bit about whole food supplementation in a couple of minutes, but also because this is why it's so important to have a whole food-based diet. When you're eating something like breakfast cereal, and if you guys grab a pen, I'm going to tell you a book to buy and read, because you'll never want to eat breakfast cereal ever again after reading this book. It's called Pandora's Lunchbox. Pandora's Lunchbox. I don't have the author's name right on, but you can get it off of Amazon. I read it on Kindle. Amazing. What they do, like let's say for breakfast cereal, for example, they take the whole grains and then they actually shred them all up. So they crush them all down, they flatten them all out, they cook them to a high level, then they dry them all out, and then they stick them together with whatever additive they're going to put to make them into like little flakes and stuff. And then what they'll do, because they've ripped out all the nutrients during this processing, then they will take synthetic vitamins and they will spray them on to the flakes in the cereal. And they do that with a lot of food, right? If you look at, lean cuisines and all kinds of stuff like that, it's fortified with vitamins. Well, first, most of those vitamins are actually manufactured in China in gigantic vats of brewing genetically modified bacteria that they've put in a plant gene to produce the vitamin, right? Not the phytonutrients, just that specific vitamin. Then they take those isolated vitamins and they spray them onto your food or insert it into your processed milk or anything like that. What they're finding is that those synthetic vitamins without the phytonutrients aren't able to be absorbed and they're not as bioavailable. So when you're eating whole foods, you're actually getting all of the cancer-fighting properties, the anti-heart disease properties, the anti-aging properties, and you're getting the vitamins and the minerals as well. So very, very cool. The other thing that I want to share with you guys about nutrition is an emerging field called epigenetics. Now, epigenetics is also completely fascinating, because what epigenetics is it is the actual alteration of your genes from environmental factors. So it's not the genes it's not the DNA that you're actually born with, but it's what changes that DNA and what affects the genes being turned on and off during your lifetime. A great example of this is breast cancer. So there's a gene that is attributed to breast cancer, and there's a test that can tell if somebody has the gene. Now, what they'll tell you right off of the bat is having the gene doesn't mean that you're going to get breast cancer. And of course it doesn't, because a lot of people have that gene. What it does mean is that you could be susceptible to that gene turning on. If that gene turns on, it suppresses your body's ability to fight tumor-causing cells. So it doesn't mean that you're going to get it. It means that your body is less likely to be able to fight tumor-causing cells. Now, there's lots of factors that can affect whether that gene turns on or off. And what they're finding out now is that a lot of it has to do with our environmental influences and how healthy our cells are. Remember I talked about toxins getting trapped in our cells? Well, those toxins constantly going up and back against the nucleus of our cell can get in there and damage the DNA. Now, if that cell replicates and makes a copy of itself, that damaged DNA is now in 2 cells. If they replicate, it's in 4 cells. If they replicate, it's in 6 cells. Now what they're finding out is that these epigenetic changes can actually be transferred to new, the scientific term is progeny, right? But to new generations, to offspring. And particularly they're doing tremendous amounts of studies on this because it's very alarming that the changes we're seeing already in children and increases in obesity rates, that those genetic changes can be transferred to the progeny, to the next generation. A great example of this, if you ever saw the movie WALL-E, it's a Disney movie, it's a cartoon, right, WALL-E. There's the evolution of human beings in being in space, and you see the whole change in their body and their bone structure and all of that. Because those changes, those genetic changes, were passed down from generation to generation. I personally feel that in the next 20 years, we're going to see a huge crackdown and a huge change in our food supply, and I'm praying for this, right? A huge change, because what scientists are now starting to find out is that the toxins in our food can actually have an epigenetic effect. And the toxins in plastics can have an epigenetic effect. And all of these cancers that we're seeing that are so prolific now that were not decades ago, like prostate cancer, testicular cancer, ovarian cancer, cervical cancer, breast cancer, pancreatic cancer, liver cancer, all of these cancers that are on the rise, certain types of isolated brain tumors that are on the rise, even though we have so many medical advancements, these are on the rise. It's because when you look at the chemical content in our food supply now versus 4 decades ago, we're looking at almost a 3,000% increase in toxins in our food supply, in our household chemicals, our water supply, all of that. Cigarette smoke, pollutants, additives to your shampoos. You know, I always tell people, use organic shampoo and conditioner. Find a good one that you like. You know, it might take you going through a couple. Use organic body lotions, or instead of organic body lotions, just use coconut oil. I had a mom the other day who asked me, we were at a little kids party, and she said, oh, you're so lucky you had your daughter young. And I said, young? You know, I had my daughter when I was 37. And she was like, what? No way. I thought you were like 30. And I said, well, how old are you? She said 41. And I said, no, we're the same age. And she goes, well, you know, your skin looks so. And I said, I use a lot of coconut oil. I don't use a lot of creams and stuff on my face. I don't use a lot of cosmetics. I use a lot of natural oils, essential oils, coconut oil, stuff like that. And I do try to stay out of the sun keep my face out of the sun as much as possible, right, to avoid sun damage. But I'm outdoors a lot, so I'll wear a hat, or I use zinc oxide, you know, natural chemicals, or natural plant chemicals, not chemicals, on my face. So a lot of this can have effects on your genetics, and that can really help you to make very, very good choices when you understand that. So what's the solution? I'm going to go through some of the supplements that you're taking, because I want to explain why you're taking them and why they're so good for you to take. When I first looked at the company that manufactures these products, RX, one of the things that impressed me the most was that they brought on Deanna Latson as their product developer. Now, I've known Deanna for a number of years, and she's fanatical about product ingredients. And a couple of things that you want to know about the supplement industry is it's a very dirty and dark industry. It just is. It's unregulated. Not that regulating it is going to make any difference, because we've seen what the FDA does in our food industry, but it's not regulated. And a lot of the supplements out there contain really bad ingredients. They use binders, and they use fillers, and they use certain types of petrochemicals like polyethylene glycol to bind it all together. They produce synthetics using GMO bacteria, and then they don't even test the bioavailability. So all they do is they put this all together in a capsule, and then they sell it to you really cheap, and they never even tell you that it's actually going to get in your cells. And when I talk to people about vitamins and minerals, a lot of times what they'll say to me is, oh, I used to take vitamins, but I never felt a difference, so I stopped taking them. And they're resistant to trying again. And I say, you know what? I totally get it, but I want you to try these. And there's a 30-day money-back guarantee. And if you don't feel different, send them back, right? What do you have to lose? Nothing. What do you have to gain? The possibility that you're actually going to feel better, right? And your cells are going to be better. So they'll try them, and no one returns them, right? But everybody reorders because they feel so much better. Our Optimals are a whole food-based supplement. So they're formulated with phytochemicals to ensure that you get optimal cellular nutrition. And they are tested for bioavailability. So our claim and our guarantee is 100% potency. What that means is that you're getting the most effective nutrients that you can possibly get. They're beyond the RDA, because the RDA was developed as a minimum for human survival, not a maximum for optimal health. So we use optimal daily allowance, and that means that your cells are actually getting the optimal amount for their proper functioning. They're easily digested. They're absorbed into your bloodstream in less than a minute within being in the stomach. And they prevent rebound weight gain because your cells have optimal nutrition. And they also improve energy because you're giving your cells everything that they possibly need for your cells to be able to produce the nutrients, the proteins, and the energy, and the other biological molecules that your body needs for survival. Now, RejuvenX, I call this mommy crack. This, to me, is one of the most amazing products that I've ever had, ever in my life. And I say that with a lot of emphasis because what Deanna formulated with this is truly amazing. She basically took the phytonutrients from some of the most powerful antioxidants and anti-cancer and anti-heart disease berries and fruits available and concentrated them into RejuvenX, and then added green coffee bean extract and Ltheanine. I'm going to talk about Ltheanine in a minute because it's so important. So in this, you've got goji berry, mangosteen, makwai berry. It doesn't have kava kava anymore. It has chamomile now. Both have the same effect. The reason we took the kava kava out of this supplement was so it could get BSCG certification. BSCG is the banned sports. BC. It's basically so professional athletes can take it. So it's banned supplements. It passed that so that it's approved for professional athletes. It won't show up with any drugging or anything like that. Kava kava can actually set off and give false positives on drugging tests. So we took that out. And then it has Ltheanine, sea buckhorn, and green coffee bean extract. Now, green coffee bean extract is all over, Dr. Oz is all over that, right? Because it actually it's a very powerful antioxidant, but it also is a fat burner. So it helps to stimulate the actual metabolism of fat. Now, what are antioxidants? If you don't know about antioxidants, you probably hear about it a lot of the time, right? Why you need antioxidants. Well, antioxidants protect you from something called free radicals. And a free radical, very simply, is just if you were to have like 3 balls that you were holding together and you broke one ball off, that would be like one ball lost out in the universe looking for its other matching pair, right? So what it does is, let's say that ball has to be with 2 other balls. Now you've got one ball seeking 2 other balls, and it's going to pull it from anywhere else. Well, it does that in our cells with little molecules called electrons, and it'll actually pull it away from your cell. And when it does pull that away from your cell, it damages your cell, and the cell can no longer function properly. So we want to prevent free radical damage. Now, what can cause free radicals? pollution, environmental toxins, radiation like from sunlight or exposure, if you have like a CAT scan or an MRI or an X-ray, cigarette smoke, pesticides, right? If you have to go in for any medical tests like X-rays or anything like that, you want to just douse your body with antioxidants. You want to give your body as much antioxidant as possible to neutralize the effect of the radiation. And then free radicals are neutralized by antioxidants. So antioxidants are actually like little ball givers. So they go over to the free radical and they give up their 2 balls, and it doesn't change the antioxidant. So while it changes our cells, it doesn't change the antioxidant. So they help to prevent all of that disease. They act as scavengers looking for these free radicals. Interestingly enough, if you take poorly manufactured vitamins, they can actually increase the amount of free radicals in your body. So they can cause more damage than they cause health. Vitamin E is an antioxidant. It's been attributed to lower incidence of heart disease. Vitamin C is an antioxidant. And then tons of phytochemicals are also antioxidants. So they help to reduce the effect of these free radicals that can cause cellular damage. In the RejuvenX is Ltheanine. Now, Ltheanine is an amino acid. It comes out of, it's a phytochemical. It comes out of green tea leaves. And Ltheanine has been attributed to stress relief by inducing a relaxing effect without drowsiness. And it's got immunological protection, so it helps to boost our immune system, natural anti-anxiety properties. It reduces cardiovascular inflammation, and it's got a possible preventative role in certain types of cancers. It increases mental alertness, and it improves memory. Now, L-theanine, what they found is that a lot of the children that are diagnosed with ADD and ADHD are very deficient in L-theanine, and when you give them L-theanine, it actually helps to reduce the symptoms of ADD and ADHD. So now we're doing some studies with RejuvenX on helping people that have had ADD and ADHD. So very, very cool. Omega Q. So why do you take Omega Q? Well, I talked to you before about healthy fats being necessary for your body to be okay with eliminating unhealthy fats, right? So if your cell and certain vitamins are fat soluble, you have to have fats in order for you to absorb those vitamins. Without it, you're going to be vitamin deficiency. So our omega oils come from very tiny, tiny fish, krill and sardines. And the reason we use tiny, tiny fish is because mercury and other heavy metals can bioaccumulate in fish. So a small fish is eaten by a slightly bigger fish, and now you've got 1 + 1 with the mercury. Now that slightly bigger fish is eaten by an even bigger fish. Now you've got 2 + 1 with the mercury. So it all adds up. So we use very, very small fish. Then we use an enzyme process to remove any contaminants from that oil. And the enzyme process doesn't leave any hexanes. Hexanes are toxins that are found in a lot of fish oils that are commercially produced. And Omega Q, by taking EPA and DPA, not only is it amazing for brain function and brain health, and has been shown to have preventative measures with Alzheimer's and other types of brain disorders, but it also promotes fat metabolism, and it promotes healthy cell membranes for nutrient exchange. If you are on a fat-deprived diet, if we go back here to this cell right here, this entire outside of this cell is made up of fats. So if you don't have enough healthy fats to maintain that cell membrane, then the outside of your cell isn't going to be functioning properly, right? And it helps to regulate cholesterol levels. If you go for any type of heart test, they're going to test these. We include coenzyme Q10 in our omega Q oils. Now, coenzyme Q10, huge amount of press coming out about it. Why? Well, one, what you should know is statin drugs, like low cholesterol drugs and blood pressure drugs, they actually reduce the body's ability to produce CoQ10. CoQ10 is naturally produced by the body. It's an essential enzyme for the production of cellular energy. So if you don't have enough, of course the side effects of those drugs are fatigue, muscle soreness, mental fogginess, slower digestion. If you're not producing enough cellular energy, your whole digestive tract slows down. Well, what are some of the side effects of that? Constipation, right? Digestive disorders, ulcers, acid stomach, right? Because it's just not moving the way that it should be moving. So we include CoQ10. So CoQ10, it's a very powerful antioxidant your body naturally produces it, and is found within the mitochondria of the cell. So this is what the mitochondria looks like, and nutrients go into the mitochondria, and CoQ10 acts as a catalyst. What that means is it acts like something that speeds it up, right? And out comes the energy in the form of ATP. CoQ10 is found throughout the body, but it's more concentrated near hard-working cells contained within the heart, the lung, the kidneys, and the liver. Now, how freaking scary is that if you are deficient in CoQ10, the organs that need it most, your heart, your lungs, your kidneys, and your liver, are not going to have that, right? So your kidneys and your liver are responsible for getting all the waste out of your body, and so is your lungs, right? Carbon dioxide, and taking in enough oxygen. And your heart's responsible for pumping all the blood around. So why do we include CoQ10? Because it's very important. It's another very important enzyme, and it also helps to assimilate the healthy fats. So CoQ10 acts as a natural blood pressure regulator. It can decrease high blood pressure. It can restore a normal cholesterol level. And it's just so important. Now, we have a product, you guys aren't taking it. It's called BioPro-Q. BioPro-Q is pure CoQ10. And whenever somebody's on any type of prescription drug, I'm always pushing that at them. Because prescription drugs can inhibit your body's ability to produce CoQ10. Interestingly enough, the pharmaceutical company that produces Lipitor tried to patent CoQ10. And if they had successfully done that, then the only way you would have been able to get it on the market would have been through a prescription. Scary, right? Fortunately, the FDA actually did its job that time and prevented it, because CoQ10 is something your cells naturally produce, so how can you patent something that a human being's cells make, right? So, okay, Pure Nourish. You guys are all taking Pure Nourish. Why we recommend this so much is because we formulated this product specifically to have all of the components necessary for fast nutrition to the cells. So the proteins that are in it are easily digestible, easily absorbable, and very quickly bioavailable. There's also additional supplements that are in there, and probiotics. The probiotics help to break down the nutrients into the necessary form so that they're used very quickly. There's no GMOs, it's low glycemic, and it's very easily digested. So how can you ensure that you're getting all of the nutrition that you possibly need? So you're going to follow the balanced nutrition, right? You're going to eat all the vegetables that you possibly can. You're going to have fruits that have more phytonutrients as well. Additional nuts and seeds that are going to have certain minerals and phytonutrients that are going to help to solve cravings. You're going to have good, healthy, lean proteins. And that's also going to help with your B12 and vitamin D, right? And by the way, people who are vegan many times are deficient in vitamin D and in B12, right? So I hope I stressed the importance of those. The Accelerate also has B12. So B12, biotin, and Ayurvedic herbs that help to reduce stress and the effects of stress on the body. And then you're going to supplement, right? And the supplement is going to assure that you're going to have optimal cellular nutrition. Okay, good. So that's all of our slides for today. I'm going to unmute everybody. I'm going to actually stop the broadcast right here.